You definitely didn't know this about Fears to Fathom Woodbury Getaway. You'll find out what happened to the hitchhiker in the end, the real location from the game, small details, and most importantly, what's behind the closed door in the basement. One of the effects in the video will be fake. Try to find it. And we begin. Inside the office, there is a small but interesting detail. In some rooms, you can notice the movement of the hands on the clocks, but the second hand on different clocks is lagging behind. In the kitchen, inside the microwave, which can actually be opened, there is a small pizza, but unfortunately, it cannot be taken out and tried. Oh man. From the office window, you can see the street where all the passing NPC men are wearing the Strangers model from the elevator. You can also notice a girl named Taylor casually walking down the street, who happens to be a mutual friend of both Nora and Sydney. At the very moment when Sydney is in the restroom, one can find a cold can of soda sitting on the toilet in one of the stalls. How she ended up here is unknown. The old man, who will soon scare Sydney, is named Jeremy Henderson, and he has a cool smile. In a busy office corner, a dedicated clerk works tirelessly on her tasks.
I'm busy with many things, Sydney.
I missed it in my first playthrough. Sydney has a photo of her cute cat on her desk. We will form a friendship with her. Let's head to the elevator now. In it, we can find a friendly stranger to engage in conversation with. His name is Gal, and he works as a software engineer on the 8th floor. He leaves for an uncertain business trip after a nice chat. In the garage, we first meet Michael, whose appearance was inspired by the popular Russian-speaking YouTuber DIDN. You see him on the screen? Let's move to the moment when the main character arrives at Moe's Pizza. It turns out the pizzeria exists in reality, which is not surprising, as most things in this game are taken from real life. I discovered this charming local pizzeria, and it's called Marco's Pizza. She is in the same state where the events of the game take place, namely in Vermont, in the city of Bennington. The similarities in their logos confirm that this is Moa Pizza in the game. At the entrance of the pizzeria, there is an ATM that can be used to withdraw money, and the main character has $4,355 in her account. The card balance remains unchanged when paying for the pizza, indicating a possible glitch or that she used cash. During the first visit to the pizzeria, you can see a TV show featuring the English-speaking YouTuber Case O.
This just in. Reports of a strong snowstorm coming towards Woodbury.
Chad, I told you there was gonna be something in here!
Few people know, but while eating pizza, you can click the right mouse button and something will happen. Also, in the pizzeria, we can find a group of people. After talking to them, we learn that they are heading to a conference. Perhaps this is a reference to the second episode, in which the main character, Holly, is returning home from a conference but ends up in a rather creepy story. Grandpa is joyfully enjoying pizza in a delightful manner. His appearance is identical to that elderly man from the first episode of Fears to Fathom, who tried to break into the boy's house. A stranger once came to us, right? Following a tense conversation, he leaves but doesn't go far at all. The poor hitchhiker got stuck on the side of the road. While Sydney is getting behind the wheel of the car, instead of continuing on to the already booked cabin, we could turn back now. And this is where the game will end. Grandpa and the hitchhikers told us that there is no police in the area. In fact, she is everywhere here. I've seen them about 5 times while returning home. Even in the restaurant's menu, you can notice a passing police car outside. Here are the liars. And since we found out that there is police, it's interesting what they do in such a small town. The most they can do is signal us to let them in. As soon as we approached the house, we could see the silhouette of a fake owner in the window on the second floor, watching us intently. And as soon as we looked at him, he would disappear in an unknown direction. But why is he standing on the second floor? He was probably looking for something in the dusty attic and accidentally left his cat there. Later, he chose to dress up for an occasion, taking a shirt from the wardrobe of the actual owner, which is where we unexpectedly find him when we arrive. This can be understood as one of the hangars is empty. He is Ryan Gosling. Do you remember the twist when we find out that the fake Rick was actually living in the basement? We could understand this right from the beginning, when we had just arrived home. Fresh tracks can be seen in the snow leading to the basement. At the entrance to the basement, we can also see the inscription, Home Sweet Home. The same phrase is said by the fake owner at the first meeting.
Welcome to my home sweet home.
After fake Rick showed us the house, he left to look for his cat. Some people say he walked slowly around the entire backyard before returning mysteriously to the basement. But if you try to follow him, he will vanish into an unknown car. In the minigame where we catch fish, the fish icon is very similar to the game Terraria. After catching a sizable carp, an unexpected script triggers, revealing a curious hitchhiker who watches us with keen interest. After that, he goes to the van and hangs out.
Damn it! Why am I hanging?
When we finished fishing, Michael's rod mysteriously disappeared. After a long day of fishing, when they finally return home, they discover that the basement door is ajar, despite being securely closed earlier. It can also be discovered that the refrigerator is slightly open, and one package of milk is missing. From this, one can conclude that someone came out of the basement, drank some milk, and went back without closing the door. And who was that? You already know? Later, we might find an empty milk carton in the basement, beside the box where the elusive lost cat quietly resides. Perhaps the deceitful fake owner was trying to lure the small, curious little cat with milk. We all remember that the main characters caught 3 fish, but at the moment of cooking, when Mike had already taken 1 carp to clean, there were still 3 fish left in the bucket. Underachiever! If you were wondering what board games you could play, since there are just so many of them, I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. You can only play Jenga, not counting the Ouija board. Michael refuses to play or participate in the other games. As the main characters make the decision to use the Ouija board, it's noteworthy that the light at the entrance to the basement is inexplicably on, despite the fact that none of them had turned it on earlier. The most intriguing aspect was the noise from the basement. It was Grandpa, but why was he making so much noise? When we switch off the light in the basement, it becomes apparent that the light in Grandpa's room also turns off, indicating that these 2 spaces are interconnected in their lighting system. Perhaps Grandpa was preoccupied with his own personal matters, and had the light on when the main characters made the decision to hold a mysterious seance. And suddenly the lights went out for him. Most likely, he guessed that someone else was in the basement besides him, and that's why he started making noise, hoping that the guests would believe his story about a ghost in the house and run away. The characters engage in a game of hide and seek in this episode. As Michael goes outside to look for Sydney, a lifeless body ominously moves from the basement to the 2nd floor in the dimly lit hallway of the house. In the end, this stranger turned out to be a fake Rick who fixes faucets with a hammer. It was this very hammer that we could have noticed earlier in the basement. If you are wondering whether it's truly possible to locate Michael before your scheduled meeting with Grandpa, my answer is a definitive no, even if you make a conscious effort to avoid the bathroom. In the episode where Mike enters Sydney's room to talk, you can hear snoring coming from the basement behind the closed door. Which once again proves that Grandpa lives in this room. And just while we were sleeping, another box of milk disappeared from the fridge, along with some vegetables and fruits. The milk is understandable why it disappeared. It's for the kitty. And the vegetables and fruits?
I actually didn't eat anything at all.
In this episode, we can also notice that a figurine has disappeared from the car, and it's unclear why Grandpa needed it.
Yes, to play.
Well, why did I think that Grandpa took them? At midnight, due to the snowfall, the tracks should have disappeared, but we can see fresh footprints at the entrance to the basement, which means Grandpa did leave his hideout after all. In the midst of heavy snowfall, Michael chooses to rush to help Nora. However, if we were to accompany him, we'd find little of interest as he eventually stops in the road. Now we will move on to the moment when a hitchhiker breaks into our house. After a heated conversation, he storms off to the basement, kicking the door in frustration. Later, we hear a chilling scream echoing through the night, confirming it's his and sending shivers down our spines. Apparently, the grandfather angrily came out to beat him up for disturbing his peace. If we look at what is happening at that moment, we can see the hitchhiker struggling for a short time, and then apparently running away. I believe the hitchhiker is doing well overall. Few people notice the following details, as at that moment it's hard to think about anything other than escaping from Grandpa. But if you act like the cat Willi, you can pay attention to the noise while we were in the basement. Grandpa skillfully blocked the back entrance using chairs and tables he had taken from the nearby area. It can also be noted that he created complete chaos in the living room. At the climactic moment when we were hiding in the attic, Grandpa realized that friends had returned home and ran away. If you were curious about his intentions, he quickly runs out the back door in an unknown direction. And now, having shared all the details you might have missed, we have arrived at the most interesting part. What secrets lie hidden in this mysterious locked room? It turns out there is a small room in it. The surroundings are messy, with scattered empty cans, dirty laundry, and an old mattress leaning against the wall, possibly from the attic. We can also see the road cooler that we arrived with, from which we took out the food for our picnic. So, he just stole it! And if you want to see this room with your own eyes, you can do so at the very end of the game. Instead of going to the front door, go directly to the basement. Then you will be able to look behind that door yourself. Thoughts on Grandfather? He's really quite strange. He's fixing the faucet with a hammer, even though you can see a wrench in the basement that would be more suitable for the job. Grandpa may lack education. It was also quite strange that he chose to run and break the doorknob instead of directly attacking the main character immediately. As for his hobby, one could assume that he has a passion for painting, as there is an easel in the basement and near the house. And now we will talk about a real place. One of the users on Reddit, after finishing the game, discovered a house very similar to the one in the game. The house is located at 164 McCarthy Road in the state of Vermont, the same state where the events of the game take place. The house resembles the game, but lacks the stream and some other details. Perhaps this house became an inspiration for Rail. One of the intrigued users also discovered a grandfather who strikingly resembles Rick. I don't have a specific story to confirm all of this, but squatting as such is widespread in the USA. Finding the ideal story will be difficult due to numerous choices. We can only speculate or ask Rail directly, but I doubt he will tell us everything. Let's proceed to discuss the theories. At the very end of the game, we can clearly see that when Sydney discussed that fake Rick with the real owner, he did not respond to her. Most likely because he was already aware of that person, possibly a grandfather figure from his past. It seems that this fake Rick was actually the previous tenant of this house, and when his lease came to an end, he secretly moved into the basement and continued to live there undetected. Or there might be something even more mysterious surrounding his presence. Perhaps this grandfather, who is not the real owner, was actually a relative of the real owner Rick, and they could have had some disagreements regarding the property, which might have ultimately led to it being taken away from him. These are merely theories, or he could simply be a quirky homeless squatter who decided to settle in this location. Some elements from my video might align with the content created by the YouTuber Puzzle. I highly recommend watching his video for more insights, and that's all I have for now. Be sure to follow Rail on social media. I love you all. This was Willi, your friend Spilly
Я
Willi.
бычок подниму, горький дым затяну, покурю и полезу домой. Не жалейте меня, я прекрасно живу, только кушать охота порой.